Everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of our EPSCoR PI meeting. I hope that you rested well last evening and that you're ready for another day of a good engagement and good information. So for those of you who were not able to join my welcome presentation on yesterday, I'll start by just sharing that I'm Sandra Richardson, the EPSCoR head. And I joined our EPSCoR team in February from a different part of NSF. I came from the Division of Undergraduate Education, the Education Human Resources Directorate. And as just a general reminder, all the slides from all the sessions will be shared with participants. So if you did miss my welcome yesterday, I encourage you to go back once the slides are shared, just to get a better feel for what I see as priorities under my leadership of EPSCoR, and where the section in general is heading, and some efforts that are coming out of some ongoing activities. And I'll share some of that again today, but I won't do a deep dive as we did yesterday. In this session today, which is our first session of day 2, my intent is just to share some general program updates. Some will be some reiteration of some of the remarks I made yesterday, but again, not at the same level. In fact, I'm going to rename this session as EPSCoR Highlights and Updates. So some of it will be highlights, some will be reminders, and some will be updates. So again, just be on the lookout for all the presentation slides along with the recordings. It will be posted on the conference website, and our meeting support team, Cyber Synergy, will send out a notice to all of our registered participants when the website has been updated with the slides and the recordings. So I'm ready to just kind of kick off the morning. I always like to start by acknowledging our team. They do a great deal of work that's associated with EPSCoR, and so I like you to see the faces of the program. So these are the people that make things work. And again, I'm just so fortunate to be a part of the team. In addition to me being new to the program, I do want to share a couple of other staffing updates with you as a part of this updates presentation. One, some of you may know that our program officer, Tim Van Rieken, is away this year on a long-term professional development opportunity as he is completing a fellowship on Capitol Hill. And so we're really excited for that opportunity with Tim. I also want to share that we are in the hiring phase of bringing a new rotator program officer on board to join our team. I expect that to happen later this year. And I particularly am grateful to this community that really stepped up and helped us recruit. You disseminated the DCL that called for IPA interest within your own networks and communities, and some of you even applied. And so thank you very much for that. We received a very rich set of candidates this round, and I know a lot of that is due to work within our community in terms of making sure we had a good pool of candidates. So I want to thank you for that, and just stay tuned for the new IPAs that will join our team. In May, we also were very fortunate to add a program officer detailee. A detailee is someone who visits a new part of NSF coming from a different part of NSF. And so Dr. John Haddock joined our team as a detailee program officer in May, and we're just delighted to have John on board. He has years of experience with the University of Memphis, but also years of experience at NSF. John comes from our EHR, Education Human Resources Director, and he'll be with us through the end of the summer. He's primarily working with our Track 4 Research Fellows program, and also our Bridging EPSCoR Communities, that new effort that we talked a bit about yesterday. So that's it for me on staffing updates. This morning, I'll start with just some general NSF updates. I find that that's a good way to kind of set the stage for our EPSCoR specific highlights and updates. So after the NSF updates, I'll segue into our EPSCoR specific updates, and then just wrap up with some general reminders about, the ways that you as PIs can remain engaged in our NSF EPSCoR community, And I expect us to have sufficient time for additional conversation this morning. I hope I don't talk for a full hour. That is certainly not my intent, but again, sometimes I do get carried away with stories and examples, but I'll try to keep an eye on the clock so that if we have questions, we have a chance to actually answer them. So I'll jump right into the NSF updates and share a little additional information with you. And again, some of this we touched briefly on yesterday, but I thought that it would be a good idea to kick off this session with a highlight of NSF's core goals. There are 3 pillars in particular that support our NSF mission of promoting the progress of science in ways that benefit the U.S. public in general, and our director's vision for achieving that particular mission. And so you see those 3 pillars on this screen here: advancing the frontiers of research into the future, ensuring accessibility and inclusivity, and securing global leadership. And so as you think about these 3 pillars, I hope, just in words alone, immediately you think about how EPSCoR is situated within each of the pillars. EPSCoR's goals and our program's impact really embody all 3 pillars and demonstrate the power of partnership, which you see transcending across the pillars. In particular, a geographic distribution of STEM research and workforce development opportunities across the United States is really a key challenge for inclusivity. And as EPSCoR's head is one that I am certainly deeply committed to. And as I shared some information around that yesterday with you, NSF's mandate is to promote science nationwide, and EPSCoR certainly allows us to truly fulfill that call as we make sure that across the nation really means every part of the nation and every institution type, and not just places that already have expensive research infrastructure. As both Alicia Nealer and I mentioned yesterday during the opening session, NSF has a new strategic plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2026. This was released in late March, and it lays out our mission and vision and strategic objectives for the next 5 years, including a vision for accelerating research and innovation, and share some exciting examples of new opportunities in science and engineering research. So I encourage you, again, in your spare time, just browse it as time permits, just to get a feel for the plan for the agency, again, because the agency plan certainly impacts EPSCoR's plan and EPSCoR's efforts. There are 4 strategic priority goals that are identified in the plan. They all very strategically align with EPSCoR goals. I think you will agree. I'll give you a quick summary of each. The first goal: empower STEM talent to fully participate in science and engineering, aims to accelerate the advancement of discovery and learning, and ensure that all citizens share in the benefits that flow from research. NSF will promote inclusion in the research community and STEM workforce, access to STEM learning and training, and widespread STEM literacy. The second goal is around creating new knowledge about our universe, our world, and ourselves. And this goal in particular aims to advance knowledge through investments in innovative ideas and people and infrastructure, all to advance the practice of research. The third goal is around benefiting society by translating knowledge into solution, and it focuses on delivering benefits from research by advancing the discovery and accelerating, again, innovation, but particular innovation that addresses societal challenges and cultivates global science and engineering, a community-based approach. And then the last goal is on excelling at NSF operations and management. And this goal includes specific strategies to attract, retain, and empower talented and diverse workforce, and also efforts to continually improve our agency operations. As another bit of NSF updates, as you know, we are all still very excited about the announcement, the formal announcement of our new directorate, the Technology Innovation and Partnerships Directorate, or TIP. It's NSF's first directorate in more than 30 years. So, of course, this is something for not only us at NSF, but for our external community as well, to also be really excited about and keep your eyes on and think about ways that your work can certainly be engaged with TIP efforts. TIP is a cross-cutting directorate that really collaboratively integrates with NSF's existing directorates and fosters opportunities for partnership with other government agencies, with industry, with nonprofits, and communities of practice, all with the goal of leveraging, energizing, and bringing to society youth-inspired research and innovation. Our TIP Assistant Director, Erwin Giachanani, will give a separate presentation later this afternoon. It's the last session for today, so I hope that you all are able to attend, and I don't want to steal any of Erwin's thunder, but I'll say that through TIP, NSF's plans to launch a series of integrative activities. Many of the activities and opportunities certainly the EPSCoR community will be very interested in, and there'll be opportunities for engagement. And so just stay tuned, and I hope that, you know, I'm mentioning this early on so that, you know, to begin to percolate ideas and questions that you may have for Erwin when he comes to talk with us later on this afternoon. And I won't say much about our organizational structure, but I thought in terms of updates, it would be important to note that the Convergence Accelerator Program, which used to be housed in the Office of Integrative Activities, which is the same office EPSCoR is housed in, that program has been moved to TIP, to the new directorate. And so just as FYI, Convergence Accelerator is now a part of TIP. I also want to share with you that NSF offers a variety of fact sheets about NSF and our bold investments in basic research. The 6 areas that you see on the screen represent a sample of the fact sheets that provide an overview of some of our NSF-supported research across all fields of science and engineering, and impacts on the American people. And I like to just point this out because I find that oftentimes the general community at large are not aware of the fact sheets, and they can be very useful to answer a lot of the questions that you have or to think more about the work that you're doing. So I certainly want to point you to these and make sure that you know that, that they're available. For example, the NSF state-by-state fact sheets provide rich, fast facts for fiscal year 21 about each of your jurisdictions, including the total number of NSF awards and the amount invested in fundamental research, the amount invested in STEM education, the amount invested in startups, the top funded NSF institutions in the jurisdiction. All of that's publicly available and in a really easy to read and succinct format. EPSCoR has its own fact sheet under the research programs umbrella. So I'm just pointing you to these resources, and certainly you may want to check them out if they will benefit you at all. As a part of that fact sheet pool, there is the NSF by the numbers fact sheet, which includes summaries on lots of other data that you see on the screen, annual trend lines for proposal evaluated, new awards funded, funding institutions, and lots more. There were some questions yesterday with folks that I talked with about number of proposals received. And so I just want to, point you to this publicly available data just to give you a bit more context about what's happening, not only within EPSCoR jurisdictions, but throughout the country as well. And then on yesterday, we talked a little bit about the fiscal year 23 budget request. Many of you likely know that NSF's fiscal year 23 budget request to Congress includes $10.5 billion for NSF's vision of advancing the frontiers of research and ensuring accessibility and inclusivity and securing global leadership, those three pillars that I talked with you about earlier. The budget request for EPSCoR for fiscal year 23 is around $247 million. I do want to note that this is not the final fiscal year 23 budget. It's just a request for both NSF and EPSCoR, of course, included. The request is merely a proposal by the administration and is subject to congressional review as our congressional colleagues have authority that gives them the power to appropriate funds. So we're really early in this process, but I did want to just give you an update of where we are. The bullets that you see on the screen, we walked through between Alicia and I yesterday in our opening remarks. We sort of walked through them all, so I won't reiterate them. But this is just a high-level summary of where we are with fiscal year 23 efforts. So let's segue into a discussion around EPSCoR specific highlights and reminders and updates all wrapped up in one. As you know, EPSCoR has 3 investment strategies. Our research improvement, infrastructure improvement strategy is certainly our largest dollar investment of our annual budget. These investments are commonly referred to, you hear us talk about tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so this money goes towards supporting the physical, human, and cyber infrastructure needs within academic institutions across all of our jurisdictions. Our other investment strategies are co-funding and workshop and outreach. So the co-funding investment strategy is specifically designed to accelerate the movement of mainstream EPSCoR researchers and institutions and jurisdictions into that mainstream NSF support. And so on yesterday, I talked with you about, certainly being present in EPSCoR funding efforts, but being present outside of EPSCoR and submitting to programs outside of the EPSCoR program and being competitive. And I often tell potential PIs and PIs that one thing I know is that the proposal that will not be funded is the one that is not received. And so we have to be, proactive and think about ways that we can make sure that our EPSCoR PI community is actually engaged with the rest of NSF funding efforts. And so this is just another plug for you that as, we have people from other directorates visiting with us throughout the PI meeting. I encourage you to engage with them and talk about what makes a competitive proposal and, what are some specific tips for successes. And always reach out to the cognitive program officers, throughout the agency for respective programs where your work actually is aligned with and situates within. And then lastly, I'll comment on our workshops and outreach investment strategy. Of course, we want to promote continuously interaction with and throughout the EPSCoR community and NSF. And so we welcome workshop and outreach proposals. If you have a workshop or outreach idea, the best thing to do is certainly follow up with a cognizant program officer and have some additional discussions around the idea and potential next steps. Just in line with my earlier comment about co-funding, I did want to just highlight one co-funding effort. We've recently co-funded with NSF Includes the Cultivating Indigenous Research Communities for Leadership in Education and STEM, which the acronym is CIRCLES Alliance. And this alliance is a partnership between 6 states in the western half of the United States, including North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, New Mexico, Montana, and Idaho. And the goal is to address the underrepresentation of American Indian and Alaska Native students in STEM disciplines and in the STEM workforce. We partner with NSF Includes to also introduce the NSF Includes First Two Network Alliance, which endeavors to improve the college enrollment rates and success of undergraduate STEM students, with a specific emphasis on rural and first-generation students by providing them with STEM research experiences and peer mentoring and student advocacy. And the Alliance is particularly focused on students in EPSCoR states. And so this is just, some quick snapshots of efforts in terms of where our co-funding dollars have gone. And there are lots more, of course, that I can share with you. Through all of our different investment strategies, we are constantly working on connections and collaborations and partnerships. And I know that in your own projects and in your own work, you're doing the same. And so we have a very large variety of external stakeholders, and I'll even go as far as saying external partners. And all of that certainly feeds into the work that we do in the EPSCoR program. And so on this slide here, you just see a subset of our stakeholders. Of course, this circle is much broader. But we use all of our interactions and collaborations with these groups to sort of reach broader pools. And so we want to make sure that we're reaching all the types of institutions in the jurisdictions, and also engaging with our industry partners and national labs, and making sure that our investment strategies are sort of threaded through all of this particular work. And then at the agency level, at the NSF level, again, we're really engaged in the work through our partnerships efforts across the agency. And a lot of that does often come in the form of co-funding efforts throughout the different directorates at NSF, but also outreach and our ongoing efforts with our Office of Legislative and Public Affairs team. You'll hear from Opa later today with some specific updates. And then certainly with our workshop efforts that I talked about earlier, and engagement again with program officers throughout the agency. And then within OIA in general, there's lots of ongoing activities that are impacting both our internal and external partnerships. Yesterday, we talked about EPSCoR's collaboration with our Evaluation and Assessment Capabilities section, EAC, in particular in alignment with NSF's recent release of our learning agenda, where there's a specific call out to some evaluation and assessment needs and plans for EPSCoR around the priority questions in the new NSF learning agenda. And so in addition to collaborative efforts with EAC, just generally speaking, internally, as I shared with you yesterday, as a part of one of my priorities, we certainly want to make sure that we are keeping EPSCoR evaluation and assessment on the top of the list in terms of both looking at our impacts, but also looking at our partnership efforts. This slide here shows us a general EPSCoR timeframe. This timeframe is certainly subject to change depending on programmatic priorities and EPSCoR needs, but I did want to situate a lot of our work and align it with a particular timeframe, just to help you as our PI community sort of wrap your head around the many efforts that are ongoing. And so here we'll just take fiscal year 22 as an example. In the fall of this fiscal year, our track 1 merit review happened, along with our track 2 solicitation release. And we also had site visits for our year 4 track 1 projects. And speaking of this fall fiscal year 22, we'll have a group of site visits that'll happen in September, and then there'll be one that'll roll over likely until the winter. And in winter of fiscal year 22, our track 2 proposals came in, and track 1 proposals went to the director's review board, all with the expectation of rolling up until spring, which is sort of the period that we're in now, where annual and final reports will be due. And again, we just completed a round of virtual reverse site visits for our year 2 track 1 awardees. You heard yesterday from our program officers, and heard mentioned that our track 1 solicitation, stay tuned for additional information on that. And track 4 proposals recently came in, and track 2, the merit review process wrapped up in the spring. And then our new effort, the Bridging EPSCoR Communities, had proposals come in April, which rolls us over into the summer months. And the BEC proposals are now undergoing merit review. Track 4 proposals also undergoing the merit review process. And we hope by the end of the summer, we'll see a new round of track 1 submissions. And so just to give you a general overview of where we are, dates are very fluid, but just giving you a general overview in terms of the quarters of the year where the work is situated. EPSCoR, of course, has made a very concerted effort to provide opportunities to those that have been disproportionately challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic. We talked yesterday, our program lead, JD Swanson, talked about the track 2 supplements that were a direct result from that as one example. And I'll also share with you that EPSCoR has recently provided significant co-funding to support the Campus Cyber Infrastructure Program, or CC STAR program, that's housed in our Computer and Information Science and Engineering Directorate. And we also, of course, launched our new fiscal year 22 effort around the Bridging EPSCoR Communities program. And so all of these efforts are sort of direct responses to challenges that the community has been engaged in around impacts by COVID-19. So in terms of the future of EPSCoR visioning activity, there's certainly lots of interest and engagement around this particular activity. And so I want to just start by just giving a general thank you to all who have been engaged in any aspect of the activity, and certainly to our subcommittee and our subcommittee chairs who have spent a great deal of time ensuring that they collect the needed feedback and prepare the needed details so that NSF can receive a set of recommendations and suggestions from the committee via a full report. So as a reminder, 19 individuals were selected to serve on the Future of EPSCoR committee, which began its work in August of 2021. The committee had solicited comments from the public and various stakeholders in different venues, including holding multiple listening sessions, and they are finalizing their report. Many of you participated in those listening sessions and other areas of providing feedback. And as you know, on the meeting agenda on Thursday, the subcommittee co-chairs will be here to give us a healthy report out. And so that will be a good opportunity to engage with the co-chairs if you have questions, if you have feedback, or general comments that you want to share. And so I for now, say stay tuned until Thursday for additional conversation. I did get a great question yesterday around just timeline in general and NSF's response to the report. And I think it's worth repeating the question if I can get it correct here, and repeating my response to the question. And so the question was something around, you know, what is the specific timeline for release of the report, as well as NSF's responses to the report. And so again, I'll say stay tuned for Kelly and Jose's presentation tomorrow. I certainly don't want to steal their thunder, but I'll say that the expectation is certainly that the report will be shared with the NSF sometime in the coming months. And once that happens, NSF will begin to not only have conversations around the detail of the report, but begin to put together our implementation plan based on those priorities that I shared with you yesterday. And so the plan is to incorporate that input into an implementation plan that will rely on, evidence-based metrics, the details from the report of Future of EPSCoR, but lots of all those other inputs that we talked about yesterday. As you know, fiscal year 23 activities are sort of already rolled out based on what I told you earlier about the budget. And so in terms of timeline, we likely, in terms of implementation, are thinking beyond fiscal year 23 in terms of direct implementation. But hopefully we'll be able to get the report, as we said, in the next few months, and then actually begin to start rolling some things out periodically. The other relevant engagement activity that will impact the future of EPSCoR is our GAO engagement. And so this is another activity that is underway. As a reminder, this was an engagement that was congressionally requested. We at NSF have responded to several data requests from the Government Accountability Office, GAO. We are really expecting to be at the end of this process and expecting a final report relatively soon. So sometime this summer, I would even veer to say. And so stay tuned for that as well. We'll certainly keep the community updated, but this is another piece that, again, will go into thinking about future opportunities for EPSCoR. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking with you about our program monitoring system. And you'll hear me sometime refer to the program monitoring system as the data entry portal. For me, they're synonymous terms, so I'll use them interchangeably. This is primarily relevant to our Track 1 and Track 2 awardees. So within the coming months, EPSCoR expects to roll out a new program monitoring system. The data entry portal is really designed to streamline data collection across all of our research infrastructure, improvement investments, and provide multi-level analysis. And so it will replace the current spreadsheets that Track 1 and Track 2 projects must submit with their annual reports. The contract for this system was recently awarded to Creative Business Solutions, or CBS. CBS is a company with a very extensive experience in customized data creation and a positive history of work on the development and implementation of data portals across NSF programs. And so we're expecting a user-friendly system, but also a system that will give us at NSF the data that we need in a very standardized and comprehensive manner. And so I do want to share with you, a little bit about, why the program monitoring system and this transition is really important. And I do that because I think back to my days as a PI even, and just the sometimes additional burden that reporting data, and the strain can cause. But I want you to understand the importance of this process, as I think you do anyway. But it's worth me just mentioning here that, certainly as a part of this whole process, our goal is really to improve the accuracy of your data reporting needs and to standardize efforts across all of our programs. And so we're thinking about this in terms of data that we need at NSF, how we need to receive it, but also thinking about our community where there is overlap between some of our programs, and we want to sort of standardize the ways that we're collecting data across all aspects of our programs. We want to certainly also allow for analysis at the different levels. So the project level, whole award cohort levels, at track levels, at programmatic levels. And so we have all of this in mind as we're thinking about the types of data that we're requesting, as well as the way that we will collect them and analyze it. And then as additional piece, we're really interested in increasing support for the visualization of the data that we're receiving, and this new portal will help us actually do that. And to loop back to lots of earlier conversations around our learning agenda, we see the data portal as another means for helping us address some of those key and critical questions that are included in the learning agenda. And so the types of data you collect and the way that we're collecting it will be helpful for us to directly answer some of those learning agenda questions. In terms of what you need to do now, what I'll say in response to that is stay in touch with your cognizant program officer and just be on the lookout for additional information from EPSCoR regarding next steps. I'll mention that we are looking for beta testers in tracks 1 and 2 for this new portal. So, if you're interested in saying, hey, count me in, I want to be a part of the test group, we encourage you to reach out to us within the next week. So it'll be helpful to have a feel of those who are interested by the 23rd of May. And it's not that you'll need to do any work by then, but we just want to know of interest. So if you're interested in being a beta tester, please reach out to us at the email address that you see on the screen, NSF EPSCoR @nsf.gov, or simply you can reach out to your cognizant program officer and they know how to coordinate with us to express your interest. There'll likely be a stakeholder meeting sometime later this summer and some additional webinars and demos that we'll roll out. So again, just be on the lookout for additional information and communications. And certainly if you have any questions about this entire process, you can use the email alias that you see on the screen, or simply just have a conversation with your cognizant program officer as needed. Okay, I'll spend a little bit of time just giving some general updates and in some cases reminders about a specific funding related to EPSCoR. I thought it would be great to start this section with this slide, just showing the average annual amount of NSF research funds that are given to each cohort. For the initial 5 years, you can see that's the hatch bars. And then the most recent 5 years, which is the solid bars of the cohort's participation in the NSF EPSCoR program. And just as a reminder, a cohort is defined as the group of states, or in some cases jurisdictions, that entered the EPSCoR program within a given fiscal year. So for example, the 1980 cohort consists of the initial 5 states that qualified for EPSCoR, so Arkansas, Maine, Montana, South Carolina, and West Virginia. And then the 2000 plus cohort consists of the 9 jurisdictions that entered EPSCoR in fiscal year 2000 or later and are still eligible for our research infrastructure improvement competitions. Former EPSCoR jurisdictions, is important to note, are excluded because they were not EPSCoR eligible in fiscal year 21. And so as we talk about that 2000 plus cohort. But what the message I want you to carry away from this slide is that each cohort shows an increase in competitiveness over the periods of participation. So for example, the 1980 cohort shows a 76% increase in NSF research funding over the past 41 years of EPSCoR activity. The 8 jurisdiction 1985 cohort demonstrates a 74% increase during its 36 years of participation in EPSCoR. The 4-jurisdiction 1987 cohort shows a 73% increase. And the 2-jurisdiction 1992 cohort has a 54% increase in competitiveness. Currently, eligible jurisdictions participating in EPSCoR since fiscal year 2000 entered the program at a higher level of NSF research funding than previous cohort. So for the 2000 plus cohort, there's been a small, but yet still relevant, I would dare to say, increase in research funding. And that increase looks like around 15%. But overall, I want to highlight that there's some jurisdictions that have more than doubled their share of NSF funding since they first entered EPSCoR. And to me, that's a metric of success that I want to make sure doesn't get lost in our story. And that's always front and center when we talk about the impacts of the jurisdictions. If you're more interested in finding where your respective jurisdiction sort of lies in terms of NSF research support by cohorts, you can look for your jurisdiction here on this particular slide and see, first column is where you were in the initial 5 years, and then the last column represents the most recent 5 years. And so I won't go through it all, but I'll leave this slide up just for a second so you can eyeball it, find your respective jurisdiction here and look at the measure of success. On this particular slide, as you can see, our funding in EPSCoR has been consistently increasing. Our fiscal year 22 enacted funding level is $215 million. And I hope that you can see as well with our funding increases over time, the program has certainly evolved and grown to include lots of activities and efforts that look like new tracks and other initiatives like our planning grants and multiple DCL opportunities and supplement offerings and lots more. And so you can also see here on the chart that really the majority of our funds do go directly to our research infrastructure improvement awards, with co-funding coming in second, as we talked about earlier, and then a small percent of the budget going to our outreach efforts. This table presents a simpler snapshot of our budget allocation over the last 5 years. Our co-funding has increased in the past year as we have expanded our opportunities to providing co-funding to center scale and mid-scale awards. And I shared some other co-funding successes with you earlier, but you can kind of see on this screen over the past 5 years, among our 3 investment strategies, you can sort of track where the funding is going. This graph represents the total NSF funding across our research and education directorates and also our major research equipment and facilities construction to EPSCoR jurisdictions over the past 10 years, with the proportion of funding from the EPSCoR program shown in orange and the overall NSF funding shown in at the bottom in blue. EPSCoR funding alone accounts for somewhere between 16 and 21% of the funding that jurisdictions receive annually, and it varies depending on the respective year. And if we average it out, it's somewhere around 18% approximately. I'll note that these calculations include formerly eligible jurisdictions during the years that they receive any type of EPSCoR funding. And so this includes those years that they had an active EPSCoR award that was awarded prior to losing eligibility, and also includes any co-funding that continued for the 3 years following their exit from EPSCoR. I'll also just share with you that this graphic that actually shares that EPSCoR program funding currently varies In terms of our overall NSF funding annually, we fluctuate between 2 and 3% of NSF's budget. And EPSCoR jurisdictions receive between approximately 13 to 16% of NSF funding annually, and this includes the funding that EPSCoR provides. So I'll wrap up by just a few reminders about ways that you can stay engaged. Certainly, it's very important to remain engaged with your cognizant program officer. They are the first line of contact, so I encourage you to get to know your PO, especially for our new PIs. That's really a very important relationship to make sure that you contribute to and that you build upon. And certainly on our side, we try very hard to do the same thing. I also, like to remind our PIs anytime that I'm talking with you that really it's important to consider serving as a reviewer for EPSCoR, but even outside of EPSCoR to other programs throughout NSF, I encourage you to continue to think about ways to not only engage with us, but make a contribution to the broader community through service at NSF, and reviewing is one of those ways to do that. And another way to do that is to, come and work with us for some time. So there's always lots of IPA program officer opportunities. I shared with you earlier how appreciative I was that you have disseminated our earlier call into your own communities. And I encourage you to continue to do that as you see new announcements offered both within EPSCoR and in other parts of the agency. That's really a very critical way to remain involved. And then certainly staying up to date on our programs and additional opportunities is really important. We try to make sure that we keep our website updated, and that's generally the first place that you can go to find out any new news or announcements. And so please continue to do that. And most importantly, consider leveraging your EPSCoR awards and your EPSCoR funded research to gain NSF funding in other areas outside of EPSCoR. We are very proud of our awardees and the impacts and the outcomes of our projects, and want you to use that to be successful in other programs at NSF. And so I want to encourage you again, as people are here throughout the PI meeting from other parts of NSF, please do engage with them and think and talk about ways that you can be successful in these programs. Just a quick snapshot of what's on tap for the rest of the day. Today will be another full day. Following me, you'll have an opportunity to hear from the head of our policy office. Jean Feldman is here to talk with you. And then after Jean, we'll take a break and go to lunch. And we'll come back and hear from Beth Blue on the some NSF budget updates specifically. And then our OPA office head, Amanda Greenwell, will be here to talk with you. And then we'll wrap up the day with a visit from the assistant director from our new TIP directorate, Erwin Giachandani. And so a very full day. I hope that everyone is able to stick around the entire day. And certainly remember, you can use your question and answer box in Zoom to engage with the presenters in this virtual webinar format. And I'll wrap up with just two things that I shared with you yesterday, but for those of you who were not here, just a reminder that the EPSCoR program recently rolled out a new website. And so I encourage you to go visit it. We still have the same link, but check out the new website and periodically visit it. That's where I expect for all of our updates and announcements to be posted. And then very lastly, again, congratulations to our new Track 1 awardees for fiscal year 22. Kudos all the way around to our 5 jurisdictions that are represented in our fiscal year 22 awards: Alabama, Hawaii, Kansas, Nevada, and Wyoming. So I will pause here, and I think we have a little bit of additional time. Certainly, if there are questions, I'll stop sharing. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I will first start by looking in the chat to see if anything's there. All right, so thank you for one question about co-funding. I'll just read it aloud. How does co-funding of center type awards work? These types of grants typically involve non-EPSCoR partners, absolutely. Would a proposal qualify as long as the lead organization is from an EPSCoR state? So thank you for the question, actually a very good question, and I'll speak to this just in general in terms of any co-funding effort. Co-funding is an internal mechanism, so generally when a submitter is submitting, there's no indication of, this will possibly be co-funded or not be co-funded. It's an internal effort that we work on. And so, yes, if the lead submitter is from a co-funding eligible state, the respective directorate will reach out to us, and we have a whole protocol on how that goes. We do a lot of in-reach within NSF to make sure all the directorates are on board. But yes, that entity for a center scale project or any project would be eligible to receive co-funding support, working on the assumption that a lot of other sort of requirements are met, and we have priority areas that we look at for co-funding as well. Thank you for the question. Okay, anything else this morning? It's sort of hard because I can't see you. I can't read your facial expressions, but certainly if you have anything that you want to ask about or you're thinking about or comments, please do use the question and answer box. Otherwise, we can take a 9-minute break. And I'll be around if anybody does have anything, but I don't see anything coming through. So let's plan to just take a short break. And if everyone can be back by 59 after the hour, wherever you are, for our next presenter, Gene Philman from our policy office. Okay, thank you, everyone. Always a delight to talk with you.